Good Friday, my favorite day of the week. And you know what's my favorite day of the week? Because today we get to speak to the whole world. Anybody that'll tune in to us. And if you're not listening to us live, hey, you're watching on the replay. Hey, that makes us grateful too. I love to look on there and see that count in a couple days where we've had thousands of people that have tuned into our broadcast, our podcast, and it keeps building more and more. So we appreciate you being a listener, and we hope that this is a time that gives you ideas, concepts, and most of all, value and ways that you can take your business to a much higher level. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. It's a process that I think that if you employ it can be a gold nugget to move forward. And I want to kind of set the stage for this to start with. Do you remember that day that you first went to school? It might have been kindergarten, or if you're mine and Cheryl's age, it was first grade because there was no kindergarten back in those days. But what we did was we were entered into a new world. We came out of the care of our mother and our father, and we were entrusted to a teacher who now had to acclimate us to the world of schooling. But there was something missing, something missing. All of us that entered that day had no idea what all we were going to have to accomplish in the next 12 years of school education, going through, middle school, high school, and then if you're one of the people that went to college, what were all the things that you had to conquer? Just think, what if you had been given a guideline? These are the tasks that you're going to have to learn in your school career. And see, I think that's what's missing in so many companies. Our people do not understand the skills that must be obtained. And what we've got to do is have our people on a path to become a subject matter expert. In other words, they have expertise in how to perform their job. And we're going to show you an example of this today because some years ago, actually, Brandy, I'm going to credit Jeremy, your husband, with this because Jeremy actually shared this idea with me some years ago when Jeremy was a client. And it goes back, and it wasn't Jeremy that came up with this. Rather, it was a person who had departed and passed on. His name was Dave Pomeroy. And what Dave put together was a proficiency chart. And that's what I want you to think about today. How many different positions are in your company, and what are the skills that that person has to possess to become a subject matter expert, to become that knock it out of the park CSR, that bookkeeper, that technician in the field, that installer. We can see it up there, and by having a proficiency chart, we're setting it out where they can see what is their entire curriculum that they need to attain expertise in. So, Brandy, let's start with you today. You're in my upper right hand corner. What's your feeling on this? Because actually, you have a conversation right after this with one of our clients, and it's all about proficiency of the office manager and description of the office manager position. That's right after this call today or this broadcast. So, what's your feeling on the proficiency chart and the need for this?
Well, I think every business needs to have it. In my opinion, you don't need just to have it and utilize it, but you need to keep up on those competencies. So we need to have a test. You probably remember, Jerry, some years ago on the proprietary side of CVC Basecamp, I put in some of my annual tests for my technicians in office. So we need to keep up and make sure that they're retaining those skills as well. I have a statistic from you from Deloitte that says only 14% of business executives strongly agree that their organization is using the workforce's skills and capabilities to their fullest potential. Only 14%. And I would argue sometimes it's because we don't even realize their full skills and proficiency.
And I agree. And that's the whole thing about this proficiency chart where we can lay this out. These are the subjects, these are the topics, these are the areas that you have to have proficiency in. But not only that, you've got to have a way to monitor this, to track and measure it. And like you said, hit them with a quiz. You ever thought about if you had a certified sweep out there or a certified technician under NFI Could they pass that test cold? Well, my friend Josh Kelly down there probably could. Okay. He has that kind of a memory that, yeah, he could probably pass an NFI test cold, a CSIE test cold, but give it to the majority of people. And what are they going to score? Is it a 40, a 50, a 60? Are they going to pass with a passing score? Probably not. Probably not. So, Josh, this is an area that you have built in for Magic Broom. What's your feeling on the proficiency charts we're talking about here?
I have them all. I mean, they're mapped out extensively for the technicians as trainees. We have called the path to be a lead technician. So even inside, we have parts just for like, we work inside a Service Titan that they can map out correctly, like an inspection report, that they can do an estimate for like water entry. We have all that a superior needs to check off on that they can do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it also, Josh, is this out in terms that the average person understands? Because, sometimes we talk at a level above other human beings. Sometimes that's where I have to tell Josh, take it down. We're not all geeks. We don't understand what you're talking about here. So is this in a way that the person can understand what you're shooting for?
Yeah, I think so. Of course, you may argue differently, but like I said, it's a big spreadsheet. It's broken down into many sections, but with a different set of skill set for each section. And then it'll be, masonry will include, we call them crowns and splashes. Can you do those? So you complete it. Can you do tuck pointing? That's one of the skills. Can you break down a pellet stove? Can you clean an auger? Can you read a tape measure? I know that's a hot button right now in North Carolina.
You saw my post yesterday, right?
I did.
Yeah, I just thought that was really neat. If you can measure, we're hiring, okay? That was the only qualification for that. I'd love to see Brandy Biswell put that out. Hey, if you can measure, apply, you're going to fit our criteria if you can read a stinking tape measure. Cheryl, let's go over to you. What's your thought? And while you're doing that, I'm going to pull a proficiency chart up where we can actually look at this and go forward from this. But I want to say something here. Josh talked about the technician role. And let me tell you something. This is sometimes, I think, a big factor. We worry about the technician training, but we're not worrying about the CSR, the dispatcher, the people in the office. And that's the center of where the work comes from. And without their proficiency, things don't happen. So, Cheryl, what's your thought on this? And I'm going to be pulling up this proficiency chart while you're talking.
I think it's imperative, especially for a new company. I mean, it is for a company that's been out there a while also, but it gives you the written word. It's kind of like the writing on the wall, literally. And a lot of people, if they can see what's going on, they can understand it, and they know where they're at in the steps. So I think it's good for any company that wants to go to the next level.
Yeah. Now, one thing, okay, so as what I've done while she was talking, I have pulled up a proficiency chart, and I got to make it where I can advance it because it's on my other screen. So I took it down a little bit, but this is a proficiency chart that, Brandy, again, I'm going to credit Jeremy for sharing this with me and building on this, but we're using this with a lot of clients. So what we have here, you can see we have a level 1, which is expected to be attained in the first 30 days of employment. So if you're in the chimney service industry, you're going to understand this. So you can see what we've got here. They got to learn how to identify industry standards. They've got to learn and follow company procedures, the paperwork. What are the job roles and job duties? Labor and helper duties. What is the proper process to sweep a chimney? What's the proper process for a gas utility flue? Sweeping a fireplace with a gas log set. Identification of a gas log set, knowing the difference in a vented and a vent free. Refurbishing gas log sets. Setting ladders, ridge hooks. Basic safety using respirators, gloves, eyewear, and clothing. And that is what is expected that person will attain proficiency in that first 30 days of employment. If you look over to the right-hand side, you can see that it has the date, it has the helper that was on there, the person we're training, the tech, and the comments. So, Brandy, this is kind of a Blues Brothers thing that we've worked from for years. So, as you look at that, what's your thoughts?
I like it. I like how basic it is. I think it's a good starting point. However, if I'm being honest, I think that it really needs a lot more detail and a lot more categories. So, for example, I just took some notes so that I'll read. You've kind of identified what are those key competencies or skills here. But then how do we define what proficiency is? What does that look like? How do we know when they're proficient? What are those different competency categories? Do we have like examples and illustrations, or where, if I'm that new tech, where am I going to learn about installing multi-flue caps? How do I get that knowledge? And then how do we measure that? Is it on the job? Do I have to do it like 3 times and then I'm proficient? And then the place for feedback, I think that's good. And you have that, the comments. I really like self-assessments as well. When I used to do annual reviews, I always had my employees do a self-assessment of them before they came, and we looked at that together and compared it to my assessment. And then, just those visual representations, wherever we're looking for those at, it kind of goes back to like an SOP. I love pictures in my SOPs. I love to have like actual screenshots. And then definitely somewhere where the technician or office person, whomever, would sign off. But I think this is a really good starting point.
And that's it. And see, this is the whole thing. I don't think there's such a thing as an industry-wide proficiency chart. I think the system has to be devised for your company. And the reason being, the business of chimney service changes so drastically from one geographic area to another, and also what people concentrate on. So all the points that Brandy just hit on, they're dead on the money. This is something that you got to spend some time in developing, and this is what we call working on the business, not in the business. And this is what you got to do. So, Josh, what's your thoughts as you look at this? Turn your mic on, Josh.
Sorry, the dog was barking.
I bet you your wife would love if she could have a mute button like that, wouldn't she?
That would require us to talk to each other, Jerry. No, I like that it's broken out by dates instead of skills, because mine is, like I said, mine is organized completely different, not in so much of a, hey, you need to be here 30, 60, 90, but here's everything you need to do to become a lead tech. It's timeline versus overall skills. And, mine you could probably make a super form between the two of us.
Yeah.
And I'm also amazed it's not on paper and scribbled in a picture of a whiteboard or something.
Yeah. And you know something? You're exactly right. But actually, on this, Josh, I recommend that this be in a chart on the wall. I want it evident. I want it where people can see where they're performing at. I want it to be almost a contest. In fact, I would even suggest that you use gamification in this, and you award certificates. Every time somebody has passed, they know how to sweep a gas utility flue for one up there. Hey, we give them a certificate for that. They get a notebook. They start adding all this up, and it becomes a contest of who has the most certificates. We turn this into gamification also. So, Cheryl, what's your thoughts on this?
I think it's really good. And I agree with Brandy, and I agree with Josh. And then I think together, if everything was bred together, it would be really good. Like Brandy, I like pictures and things because some people are just totally visual. And the main thing is to have it. And I think that's the problem. People are they think it's going to take so long, and it will take a while, and it will never be finished. So they need to be aware you can have it done, but things change. Your timelines change. And I would say at times your categories will change.
That's correct. And you've also, I think, got to understand what is the basic skill level of the person you're hiring. I mean, we talk about it. There's a sign yesterday I saw posted on Facebook. Can you measure? Now hiring. Okay. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that cannot read a tape measure. To quote Mr. Josh Kelly, he said that he would be happy if his applicants knew which end of the hammer to hold. Josh, do you remember that statement?
Well, I do have a test for that.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to keep going through this because what this has done, you're going to look at a 3-year proficiency, a 3-year. And see, that's what often happens. And I can remember one time I told Josh, I said, Josh, you're trying to get your people to become experts in wood, in gas, in pellet, in chimney sweeping all at the same time. And to be honest with you, that's going to overwhelm most people. So as you look at this, as I scroll down, you can see that I have what down under what you're going to learn between the first and the second month. Then you're going to go from the second through the third month. What are you doing here? And again, you've got to design this to work with your company with the needs of what you have. And it's got to be for every position. Like I said, this is one of the big things. Often we miss training our office people. Randy, let me ask you to speak on that because this is something you've started doing is running training for office staff. And do you agree that many companies have really dropped the ball and expect their office staff to just pick up and run with stuff?
They do. It's interesting. I just had a call about this yesterday. I had a company reach out to me, and they're really trying to grow and make some changes. They've acquired another company, and they are looking at their onboarding process, which they don't really have. And so that's what they're wanting to do is set up an onboarding process. And it is really a pain point of mine, Jerry. I see companies all the time that they just hand the person a phone and say, good luck to you. They may hand them some phone scripts, they may not. And they just expect them basically to teach themselves.
Yeah. I mean, you've run several classes this year at the Learning Loft there in Kansas City. So, what kind of frustrations come out from these students that come to Kansas City and spend this time with you in your Learning Loft?
It's mainly that they don't have these resources. Their employer hasn't provided them with these resources. One thing I like about this chart, Jerry, is it doesn't just have to be a proficiency chart. It can also be used as when you hit these certain levels, then you become a tech 1, a tech 2, and you get more money. So we can start a technician out at a little bit of a lower rate and then pay them more as they achieve these proficiency levels. I have another statistic from Deloitte. This is a big study that Deloitte did on skills. And it said around 75% of workers alike say skills-based pay and transparency regarding what skills are worth would be a positive development. And that's another complaint I hear often from the CSRs is they're taking on more and more, but they don't feel like they're being recognized for it.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going through this. You see, we're up to mastery timeline at 10 months. Now, right here, some companies don't do dryer vent cleaning. Some companies are very big into dryer vent cleaning. You'll also see that there's areas you see right here. We have CDAT certification. So what we've also got to put forth, if you want certification as part of this growth plan, when do you want it? Is it 6 months in? Is it 3 months in? And see, what I like about this system is we can start seeing the capacity of the person to do the job, the capacity of the person. But you've also got to do this. You got to look at yourself as the manager. Are you providing them the training to do this? Or are you simply saying, hey, go out there with Joe today? And there's the problem. Joe may be a great technician, but he's actually a crappy trainer. Okay? Being a great technician does not make you a great trainer. So, Josh, to you, what would be the next thought in your head out of this?
Oh, I've definitely seen the great technicians can't be trainers. I've seen that. And a guy with us 30 years, and he never trained one. He could never get one person to take the next step.
Okay.
But no, I mean, as you scrolling through this, I really like it. Like I said, for me, I would be adding more details to it, for specific skills, for each one. Like, when Brandy was talking about her review, Brandy helped me make my review form, but then I have a metric sheet that accompanies my review form that's about 2 or 3 pages that just says, hey, here's how I'm going to review you based on each of these 30 criteria. Here's what I'm looking at.
Right. And so when you look here, you can see we are at level 13. This is 36 months in. And now we have someone who can begin training technicians. And he's also ready to go into supervisor position training. Okay. We built this in. And a lot of times we're hiring, and we may be hiring a person for a GM position, an operations manager. And what's the bad thing about this is usually they're not going to have a technical background in this industry. They're going to come out of another industry. So one of the things we have to do is get this person where they are training and learning the industry itself. But you see, this is a 3-year program. And again, you design this for your company. Now, here's the deal. If you're tuning us in today, and this is an interest to you, I'm going to be glad to send you. There's no charge. There's no follow-up. There's no sales following this. But I'll be glad to send you this proficiency chart that you can use as a template to build your own proficiency chart that fits within your company needs. So Cheryl, your turn. What's your next thoughts on this?
Well, now we have the chart. The chart's not any good unless you've got somebody that can hold people accountable to even looking at it. So if it's on the wall, they've got to at least see it, or you've got to stay behind it. I say a lot of times it's the person that should be holding the people accountable that's falling loose.
Yep, and it is. And that's one of the issues. Had a conversation this morning, 8:00 call with a new client of mine. And, we've done his analysis. Now he's launching. And I was so impressed because he showed me his action plan of all these things that he was going to take the company through. But this was his big concern. And he said, Jerry, here, I'm concerned I may not be able to sustain this. And that's the problem so often. And I see you, Josh. I got you. I'll send you one. But if it's having this sustainability, it's part of the 5S of lean. And we see people start something. Randy, you ever see people start with a good intention and they drop the ball that just don't have? How often do we see that?
All the time. I mean, I think I'm guilty of it myself in some areas of my life.
Yeah, but we do. And that's a lot of your calls. I know you're working with office staff and those type of things, and you see it. And so often we're going in so many different directions. Like, stop, slow down. Let's fix the foundation here.
And that's what I like about your chart is it's a roadmap, right? It tells us where we need to go next. And you're right. That's so often the problem is everybody's going in 100 different directions with no real direction at all. So nothing's getting accomplished. One thing I would add to that too, as well, I saw like gas log troubleshoot was on the list, for example. This is an area where if you're like Josh and you have like a showroom, this is a great area where you can set up training on that before they ever even go out in the field and check off that competency right there. I have a client I'm working with right now who his training center is going to blow everyone in the industry out of the water. He's a very detailed oriented guy, and he is building mock-ups for every single thing they do. And so then this skills checklist can be checked off right there in the training center. One more statistic from Deloitte, 76% of workers say they want their employer verified skills, so this proficiency chart, and work-related data to be portable, enabling them to share the data once they leave. I have had 2 technicians leave our company over the years, and I've placed them with other chimney companies because they were moving out of state. And what a great thing to send them away with when they're going to another job in our industry. Hey, here's their proficiency chart, so they know exactly where they're at in their training.
Lord, and when you said that, Randy, I was on an interview yesterday with one of my clients interviewing a new prospect that has almost 20 years of field experience. He's going to be relocating. He wants to relocate to a new area. And as I went through this, what you just said, my God, if we had had this proficiency chart and he could have said, okay, these are the areas that I'm proficient in, and showed us this book of certificates. How in the world would that have blown you out of the water, Brandy, when you had that?
Yeah, I mean, that was required of me. The hospital that I worked at, if you were applying for any positions or transfers, you had to have your portfolio, is what we called it. And it had all of that information in it. So I think that would be a great thing for our technicians and our CSRs to have.
Gotcha. I understand. So let's go around one more time. Josh, you got any closing thoughts on this thing about proficiency charts?
No, just I think build them to your company and just start, like, in my head, I'm looking at Brandy's and mine together. I'm already like, I can I'm already hyperlinking stuff in my head to, for the detail sections and then a whole section gets checked off
Yeah.
in
Well,
my
Josh,
head.
what
And
you
then,
thought? Yeah, go ahead.
and then of course you talk about Dave Pomeroy, and then of course I have all his training aids. I had him build some stuff for me before he passed, and I was cleaning out my office and I found a bunch of stuff this week.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I think what you hit on, Josh, is I think the proficiency chart, like I've showed up on the wall, on the wall, in
Well,
paper, that kind of stuff. But you also need that in-depth background of how you're going to attain this subject matter expertise in each of these categories. Would you agree with that?
yeah, because then you can talk about your NFI certifications, NCSG. NCSG is it a 5-year plan now, Brandy? I think they have, or 3, or for the journeyman and master.
Yeah, I'm not fully sure, to be honest with you, because I'm off the education committee now.
Yeah.
Um, having those things in there is, just out of this world. And of course now everyone knows Brandy's opposite of me, so she's already got these certificates made up in her head.
Yeah.
That's what I admire about Josh, though. I give him like a template or a tool, and he like puts it on steroids.
And mine actually are public viewing, the charts, what you're talking about. There's a page inside our internal page where you can see everybody's proficiency charts.
Okay, so when you say public viewing, that's for people in the company, not for the general population.
Yeah,
Okay, because you got
anybody in the company can view those proficiency charts.
Gotcha. Understand. I just wanted to make sure when you said for public viewing, that's pretty wide ranging. That means anybody, I was going to tell you to give us the link to that, but I don't believe we're going to do that. So
No,
Cheryl,
I can share it. I can share it though.
yeah. So if you want Josh to share stuff, hey, you've got his email address right there on the screen. That is his primary email address right there. If you see coming from anything else, just ignore it. Okay. If it don't come from CVC Success Group, hey, we think somebody might be impersonating big old Josh there. And he goes silent on me. Cheryl, what's your closing thoughts on this?
Well, at our age, I'm going to leave that open. We were treated to proficiency charts when we were in school. They were gold stars. When you finish something, you got a gold star. When you finish something, you got a gold star. And where did we drop the ball at that time?
We dropped the ball, Cheryl, whenever we went to the, what they call it, everybody gets a trophy stage. That was one of the things, no child left behind, all this kind of stuff. And we stopped rewarding them. We got a football team. Everybody got to play. Everybody, no matter how bad you are, we got to send the little Joey out there who's going to lose the game. But the rules are everybody gets a trophy. So we're not rewarding people for stepping out and being that special person. It's like, I'm sure I never had one, but I'm sure it had to be a sense of pride to have your child be a valedictorian of their high school. I know Brandy, she's got a daughter that's, man, I don't know what all that little girl's doing out there, but I know that she's the apple of Brandy's eye. And I know that when so she gets something, I know that Brandy looks at this with a sense of pride. So anything else today, Cheryl?
No, I just think that people need to take a step back, because that's where you've got to start. Take a step back and just start. You're not going to make this thing perfect in a day, a week, a month, or a year. But again, as we've always said, to get somewhere, you've got to start.
That's it. And, that reminds me of a story that Scott McCain shared with us, Cheryl. And you know, one of the things, and everybody on this broadcast right now knows I push this. Brandy, you ever heard me say you need to write a book?
Thousands of times.
Thousands of times. And I
I
tell
hear it in my sleep.
you hear it in your sleep, and I tell many and clients that's part of the ball game. But Scott McCain, who is a noted speaker and author, and was a coach of Cheryl, mine, very good friend, and we were talking to him one day, and he told us about his first meeting with Zig Ziglar, and where he was going on the stage with Zig Ziglar. Now, so you'll know, to be on a stage with Zig Ziglar at when Zig was alive, that was like the height you could go. There was no farther way to go in public speaking than be on the same stage as Zig Ziglar. Okay. If you had that opportunity, you had reached the pinnacle of your career. So they were in the green room. And so you know what the green room is. That's where all the speakers hang out before they go on the stages, in the green room. I don't know why they call it the green room, because it's not green, but anyway, they call it the green room. So Scott was in there and he met Zig Ziglar, and he was just in awe. He was in awe. So Zig Ziglar asked Scott, said, Scott, have you published your first book yet? And Scott said, Mr. Ziglar, I just haven't had the time to get it done. It just is such a task. And Zig looked at him and said, Scott, you know, I've never written a book in my life. Never written one in my life. And Scott said, but Mr. Ziglar, you have all these books that are published. He said, I never wrote a book. I simply got up every day and I wrote a few pages, and before long, I had a book. And see, that's building business. That's what you got to do. Slow, if you ever remember Randy, when he was on here, he would say slow is fast. And what you got to do in building your business, it's very similar to eating an elephant. And I put this in every analysis. How do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. So it's the processes we tell you about. If they help you, what you have to do is you have to put them to work. And once you embark on a project, you got to take it to completion. Because I'm going to tell you something else. You tell your workforce that you're going to do something and you don't do it, guess what? The respect they're going to have for you is going to fall away, because you're not a person of your word. You weren't able to stay with your commitment. So if, as a leader, if you can't follow your commitments, how can you expect your people to? If that comes across hard, I'm sorry, but this is the way it is. You've got to move on this stuff. Well, it looks like we lost Cheryl for some reason. So Brandy, what's your closing thoughts on this subject matter today?
Yeah, I have about 4 of them. So
I want to hear every single one.
the first one is Cheryl said something that reminded me. She's talked about gold stars, and I love that idea combined with your idea of having the proficiency chart on the wall. Some years ago, we were doing a challenge for our techs to get Google reviews, and we literally made a chart and gave them the gold star stickers to put up there when they got a review, and they loved that. So I would love to see that with the proficiency chart. The other thing I love about it, as I'm thinking back to one of the very first ones I ever made for our technicians when I was new to the company, was for their first 90 days, and they had to check off 3 times on each skill. Well, if they started in the summer, they may not see an unlined wood stove for that first whole 90 days. So then it was a great tool for us to see, okay, where else do we need to put them? Or maybe we're 60 days in and they've never been down on a prefabricated fireplace. So we need to get them on a truck with a prefabricated fireplace. I still love the idea of using this proficiency chart to reward monetarily as well. You know, one of the number one complaints I hear when I interview people is, well, there was nowhere to move up in the company. And this proficiency chart is exactly that. It's a guide, it's a map of how you can move up in the company. With that typically comes more money. And then my last thing is just a plug for something next month. So next month, November 15th and 16th, I'm going to be in Chicago teaching on a class on CSRs for Toolbox Live. This is something that Service Titan puts on. You do not have to be a client of Service Titan. Anyone can come. Just Google Toolbox Live Service Titan or email me and I can send you to the link to register. But this is going to be 2 full days of classes for just CSRs, focusing on the CSR. So I'm really excited about that because, you know, I feel like the CSRs get left out a lot.
Yeah. So this is an on-site training in the Chicago market area.
Correct.
Got you covered. So this is 2 days. You don't have to be a Service Titan customer to go to this.
No, anybody can come.
Okay. And is there a charge for this, Brandy?
There is, yes. So you do have to go on and register. I'm not sure what the charge is because I got mine for free because I was speaking.
Got you covered. Understand. So again, repeat where they go to get access and where they register at.
Yeah, so they can either email me and I'd be happy to send them the link, or if they just Google Toolbox Live Service Titan, it'll bring up all of the Toolbox Lives. So they do these ongoing. There was one this month. The exciting thing about the November one, as I said, though, is it's just for CSRs. And I'm also going to be speaking on a panel there as well on how we reward our CSRs. How do we spiff our CSRs?
Got you covered. Well, folks, this has been, I think, a very good subject matter, a great topic, no matter what business you're in. Yeah, I showed you a technician chart for a chimney service technician. I just needed to show something. But this is what you do. You got to break it down. What are all the skills that your people need to learn? The warehouse manager, let's look, if we look at the warehouse manager, he's got to know the difference in all these parts, or he's not going to be able to pull the right stuff. He's not going to be able to know where to order it from. You've got to do this. And sometimes it's going to take some extra effort. But this also gives a way for people to move up in the company. And so many people leave companies because they feel like they're stuck. And this shows somebody that chart. How do you come into management? How do you become a trainer? How do you do these things? So look at that again. Hey, the offer is out there. You see my email address right now. You want a free copy of this template? Just let me know. Josh, I got you covered. I'll be sending yours right after this. And let us know here at CVC Success Group what you need. How can we help you? We have subject matter expertise that can cover just about any range you need in the home service contracting business. And the thing is, like I said, I had a client this morning, and as I was talking, they asked a question, and I said the following: listen, you're in the Brandy's expertise. I'm going to give a text to Brandy and see if she can have a conversation. And that's the conversation you're having right after this broadcast today. Same thing. When it comes to software, hey, that ain't me, folks. I'm not the software guy, okay? At my age, I ain't going to learn it. I ain't got to learn it, and it ain't going to happen, okay? That's what I got these other people on here for. If it comes to a hiring question, personality, that's where Cheryl comes into play. And we have other people on this team and finances and the marketing, other thing that you don't see on here, that's all a part of our network. So reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. We may just have the processes that you need to get you out of your frustration and moving even closer to that dream you had the day you started in business. And with that, we'll see you next week on the next episode of the CVC Home Service Network. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic week and a fantastic weekend. Thanks for being